Welcome everyone to Open Arms Spiritual Church. I'm going to be doing a presentation on, if I get my laptop up, on palmistry. I've been doing palmistry for a very long time. If I get my laptop here. For a very long time. I started doing palmistry when I was about the age of 12. It was a very strange situation because one day I just woke up and I knew how to read the palm, I knew how to read cards. Never was taught. So it was a very bizarre situation, but I thought it was really cool. I was like, oh wow, I can read the palm, I can do all this stuff. I'm going to be teaching the basic lines of the palm, but I'm also going to be bringing in some other things that, techniques that I use in the way that I read. And when you read that way, you get a lot of information. You can just sit with the palm, just reading the palm of a person, and you can see things not only in their present lifetime, but you can also see like past lives as well. A lot of those things come through in the palm, and that's why it's so fascinating. And so I'm gonna go into some of the basic things, the basic lines of the palm.
You gotta turn the power on. Is the cap off the lens?
Yes. Oh, okay. There we go.
It's the first thing I did.
Okay, palmistry is known as chiromancy, sophisticated word, chiromancy. And what it is that's the technical word for palmistry, for either palm readers or anywhere else. It's the technical word that they use for that. And it's an evaluation of a person's future, what particular path that they're on. And I think that a lot of people don't know this. When they're thinking of the palm, they're thinking that both of their hands are the same. They're actually not. For example, when you're reading the palm of a person, you are reading their dominant hand, the hand that they write with, especially if they're ambidextrous. I usually ask them, they go like, oh, I'm ambidextrous. Well, what hand do you write with? Because that is your dominant hand. And that is where all the information is in. The other hand, the non-dominant one, is the hand of everything that you come into this world with. Like for example, the traits, all the different abilities that you have are in that non-dominant hand. And your hand, your dominant hand, is always changing. And it's changing with each and every decision that you make in your life. If you were to take a Xerox copy or a picture of your hand and you look at it months later, if you are changing, you're going to see differences in your hand. New lines are going to start coming in, and you'll start seeing changes happening there. If you're doing healing work, you'll start seeing changes happening in the lines of your hand as well. Most of the time when I'm working with my clients, I usually ask them to look at their hand when they're doing healing work. And I'll tell them, pay attention to this particular line. Once you start doing any type of healing work, it'll start manifesting on your hand. Lines will go away, or different areas in the hand will start changing. And that's what I find so fascinating about it, because it's always changing, and it's changing with the different things that you are having in your life. And so that's what's really cool about it. Okay, so we already, this is these are the lines on the hand. These are the lines on the hand. You have your lifeline. Everybody knows about the lifeline. Your lifeline, your headline, your heart. And these are all the different lines that you have. Everybody pretty much knows about the lifeline. Lifeline has a lot to do with the things that you're doing in life. It has a lot to do with your health. If you have a very long lifeline and it curves downwards, it's showing that you're going to have a really good life. That no matter what ailment or whatever you get and have in your life, you're going to be fine. And as I told you, that always changes. It changes with the decisions that you make in your life. I remember there was someone that I was looking at their line, and he was a very young kid. He was a teenager. And I looked at his hand, and I was going like, wow, you have a very short lifeline. But I knew why he had the short lifeline. He was in not a very good lifestyle. And my guide was pretty much telling me you have to be blunt with him. And I pretty much told him, if you continue on the path that you're on, from what they're showing me, there will be probably not a very good outcome if things do not change in your life. Well, he really got afraid when I told him that. And so he started making changes in his life, and his lifeline actually lengthened to the normal size of the lifeline. And so that's what I'm saying. Everything will change. If you want to change something in your life, whatever is on your hand is not cut in stone. It's going to change with all the different decisions that you make in your life. So if somebody comes and says something to you, that you didn't really like, well, you can change that. And so that's what's very interesting about that. I know a lot of people come to me. They want to know if they're going to get married. So this is like the marriage line right here. That's your marriage line. And on the marriage line, you can also, the children also appear around the marriage line as well. And the way that they appear is that it's a little line that radiates off of, let me go on this side. It's a little line that radiates off of the line itself. Some of them will be connected, some of them will not. The ones that are not connected, that usually means that there's going to be somebody in your life that either you might be taking care of, or it could be a stepchild, or it could be a family member that you're taking care of. But it will come up right above the line, right above the line right here, but it will not connect, so you know that it's not connected with you, that it's not part of who you are. It's not part of like family. So it definitely is showing that. So you'll start seeing those lines. You can also tell the sex as well. A long line means a male. A short line means a female. But sometimes that can be kind of iffy there, because sometimes there will be times where, let's say for example, a very dominant female will come up as looking as a line of a male. So sometimes that will usually appear that way. So it's kind of like you have to like gauge it. So a lot of times that'll come up, but that's very interesting. There is one woman I remember, I was looking at her hand, and I saw all these kids around her, and I was going like, what in the world? She was like all these kids around. And then I told her, well, do you work with a lot of children? And then she goes, oh yeah. She goes, I'm a kindergarten teacher. I said, oh, well, that explains it. And sometimes too, when you have a lot of children around you that are not connected to you, that means that the lines are just floating around that particular area. It could have to do with what you were doing as far as a career as well. So there could be like several different factors that come into play when you're doing a reading, you know, and especially in this particular area. And it gets even more complicated as you start analyzing all the different lines around a particular area. Like you could, like if there's going to be a divorce, you're going to see a fork at the end of this line. Like right here, this right here at the end of the line, you're going to see a fork if there's a divorce. If there's something more than that, well then it's going to be indicated by the way the line goes. So that's that's very interesting there too. The heart line, we have the head right here, and then the lifeline. Right in between the head and the heart, this is where I usually look to see if somebody has a psychic ability. Because if they have some type of a psychic ability, it's going to appear in between those two lines. Between the head and the heart. You'll have like an X. You'll have like an X right here in this area. Depending on how pronounced it is, it says how strong your psychic abilities, how evolved you are in your psychic abilities. There's some people that I've seen that they'll have like multiple X's coming across that particular area. And when that happens, it means that is coming from a past life. It's coming from another lifetime. And so you'll see like a series of X's coming through this area, and it has to do with knowledge that's coming from a past life. Anytime you see triangles, circles, or anything like that on any of these lines coming downwards, they all have to do with emotions. If anyone looks at their hands, they'll see that they'll have like triangles, little chains. Those are all dealing with emotions, especially with triangles. Triangles encompass a certain amount of time. It's a certain time period. I don't really see triangles spanning a short amount of time. I usually see them expanding a certain amount of time. And you can usually see this on any of the other lines. You can see it on the head, you can see it on the heart, on the lifeline. Those are all different areas that you'll see it, especially like in early childhood. You'll see a lot of chaining in early childhood, which is usually in the early parts right here. And you'll start seeing either little chainings and things like that, according to emotional things that might happen in your life. And that's what really makes it interesting when you're looking at that. You're looking at the chaining, and if the lines, these two lines are very close together, like on this one right here, the headline is separated from the lifeline. But if the person is very close to their family, those two lines are going to be connected. They're going to be close together, and it's going to show that there's a close relationship between the family. There's actually some people that I've seen that they're so connected to their family that these two extend further on downwards, showing how close they are to the family. And a lot of times, you'll see some that are like the way it's displayed on this particular palm, that is disconnected. That usually means that either there's a distance within the family. Maybe they're not getting along with their family members and there's a disconnect. But that's what usually happens. Or else it could be just like physically far away from their family and they can't really interact with them. But there is, that's what it's showing when there's a distance there between those two lines. So that's a really big indicator there. As far as the different mounds, some sometimes you'll see like some of the little circles, the stars, the dots, and all those little markings on some of the mounds. I've noticed that if I see like a lot of lines coming across the palm right here, where the lifeline is at, that person worries too much. The more lines they have there, the more worrier that they are. They worry about everything. And you'll see that on the palm. As soon as you see it, you go, oh wow. And you can also tell a lot of qualities about the person by the mounds. Like for example, right here, like if you're touching that mound, and if it's really soft, that means that like for example, right there in that area underneath the lifeline, if you're touching the palm and it's rough, heavy, or if it's soft, that has a lot to do with the demeanor of the person. If it's really heavy when you hit it there, that means that person's stubborn. If you're touching the palm right here and it's really soft, that means that person can easily be manipulated. And so there's a lot of things that you can find out when you're touching the palm in those particular areas. So it's very, very interesting. Another area that I get a lot of information on too is like if you want to look and see if you have like a psychic ability, you know, as far as mediumship, for all those mediums out there, which I know we've got quite a bit here. You can find this out even if you don't think that you're a medium. You can find out because there's going to be a line over in this area. There's going to be a line over in this area, and it's going to be moving upwards towards that way. And the stronger it is, the stronger the medium is. And so immediately when I look on a person's hand, I go like, oh, yeah, they're a medium. Even if it's a little child, I'll look, oh yeah, they're a medium. You know, you can tell. And so there's different ways that you can really find out about things like that. This line down here is they call the girdle. Usually I look at the bracelet. I usually look at those, like let's say for example, if a woman's pregnant. If a woman is pregnant, that'll usually tell you about the how the pregnancy is going to go. And it also tells you too how many pregnancies that person has had. And it's very interesting. It'll tell you, you know, if it's going to be a smooth pregnancy or if there's going to be like a little bit of complications, but it definitely goes into there. That's very interesting. And so there's a lot of different things you can get from the different lines. And it's really interesting because what I usually do if I'm wanting more information off of a line, I use psychometry as well. Psychometry is energy. You know, you're reading the energy. And what I usually do is like, let's say for example, somebody comes over to me and they go like, oh yeah, I want to know how that person is going to look like, the new person that I'm supposed to meet. I'll touch that line, and all of a sudden, you know, I'll start seeing things concerning that person. So you can't do that. If you have that ability, you know, for psychometry is not difficult, but you will actually pick up more information by touching that line. By touching that line, you'll pick up more information about that particular line, especially like let's say, you know, maybe there was something going on in that person's life and you wanted to know more about it. Well, then you can touch that line and move forward with it. Another thing about the head right here, see how this line just goes straight across? That person, that usually means that the person that has a very straight line like that, they can be very direct with their words. They can be very direct, they can be very blunt, and when they say things, you know, it's like they don't beat around the bush. If it's a line that's kind of wavering, it's kind of like a person that has fluctuation in their moods. It's kind of like they have like ups and downs with their moods, and so their line will kind of go up and down. If the line moves across and goes down, that means that there might be like a problem with depression there. If the line goes across and it goes upwards, that means that that's a positive person, a person who's really upbeat. So that's something to really pay attention to, you know, on the headline, and also on that line, there'll be like a lot of indicators. If there's like triangles, and that's a very common place to have a lot of triangles. If there's triangles, circles, you know, those are all dealing with emotions. If there's like a really big triangle, that means that there's a particular lesson that that person needs to learn about, and is very, you know, mental, and they're really thinking about it. So there's a lot that you can, information that you can truly get, you know, concerning all those different things. And so I went through everything with that.
How about the heart?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. The heart is a very, I pay attention a lot to the heart line. The heart line is this one right here. The heart line is one that I pay attention to a lot, because if you look at the heart line, that has a lot to do with a lot of the emotional things that are going on with you from the time that you were a little kid up until now. And when you're looking at the heart line, you know, it goes like this. And no, that's the wrong one. This one right here. That's right here. The heart line. If you look at the heart line, it'll have like a lot of chaining, a lot of circles, triangles, you know, depending on what's going on in your life, you're gonna start seeing those. So the heart line will have all those kind of things on there. And when I'm doing like a relationship reading, I'll look at that line, because it'll tell you a lot of how that person is. Maybe that person is very closed off, you know, because of things that have happened to them in the past. And so it'll tell you a lot about that person. If they're a very loving person, if they're not loving, I mean, if they're very cold, this line right here will be straight like this one. Remember when I was talking about the person who's direct, the very straight line. If a person has a straight line like that on their heart line, that means that that person is very closed off. They're very cold. They're not emotional, and there could be like reasons of why they're that way. Maybe there was a traumatic situation that happened with that person, and then that they became that way. So that's why it's really good to kind of investigate, looking at the different lines. Because it's funny, it's kind of like you're investigating when you're looking at one line, you start looking at the other ones too, to come you know, with a full picture of everything that's coming up, and that's what's so fascinating about that. And so the same thing that you do with all these different lines, you do with all analyzing each and every line will make you come to a bigger picture about what's going on. And so. And I'm also going to go into timelines. We're going to go into like the timing, so that you can see how you predict time by looking at the lines as well. Each one is different. Okay, and that's like an explanation of what. Oh, I didn't go into simian lines. Okay, the simian line is, let's say for example, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody with a line. It's not very common, but they are out there. There are some people that they don't have any of these lines. They only have one line that comes across like that. And I've had people, oh, is there something wrong with me? I only have like one line on my hand. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. The thing is with that person is that when they make decisions, they make it from their heart. And then a lot of times what ends up happening is that these people, when they're really young, they'll end up getting in trouble because they're not logically thinking about things, they're thinking with their heart. And then as they get older, you know, they're already starting to learn from their experiences. Well, then they're able to make the proper decision. But the thing is that it's all together. It's really strange, all together, and they'll only have like one line coming across. They don't have, they only have like one line coming across. So yeah, it's a very strange situation there. But there's nothing wrong with that. If anybody has a line like that, it's not bad. Oh yeah, you have it. Use an example. Come and look at her hand. Yeah, she has the simian line.
Can you have the light for a second?
Would you agree that was how things would go in your life?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, there's another one. Here, let me show that to you just a second. I have that one solid one, but there's a. More like please.
No, that's not a complete simian line
Okay.
because it doesn't even
Because
have
there does
this.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you wouldn't have had that, well then I would have said, yeah, you had it.
Okay.
But yeah, you got one.
False alarm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, but
Just
yeah, you
shed
were
the light
close,
on
you
it.
were close. And yeah, you were close. And so yeah, there are people that have like just one line and it's very different. Okay, we went over the different little, if you have a dot on one of your lines, that means that that's something that you really need to pay attention to. Really pay attention to, depending on where that dot is located. It could be on your lifeline, it could be on your heart line, it could any of those areas. It's more or less kind of like a warning that you really need to pay attention to whatever you're doing. So as I told you before, you have to combine to see different areas that would have to do with. But usually if you see a dot, you know that there's something that you need to pay attention. It's like a warning. As I told you before, the islands are emotions, so are the triangles. Those have a lot to do with emotion. The grids, these usually, remember I was talking about the emotions that you have right here, like worry and those types. That's when you get the grids. Crosses, you'll also see those on the lines as well. And that's what we were talking about, you know, like the mystic cross that I was talking about and dealing with the psychic abilities. I have not up to this date seen an M, but they say that that's very rare and it's very, it's good luck, they say. Anybody that has that on their hand, you know, it's like they have like this tremendous good luck. Haven't run into that yet. Haven't seen an M on anybody's hand yet. You know, it's actually it actually should be like on one of the areas on the palm, but I haven't run into anything like that yet. Breaks. Sometimes you might have breaks in your palm. It's not a bad thing. Some people go like, oh, am I gonna die? There's a break. No. If you have a break, it usually means like there was probably something very emotional that happened in your life and it's gonna cause a break in the line. And that's oftentimes what that has to do with. It's not a bad thing, but you know, it's an emotional thing. Stars are very lucky. If there's like a star in a certain part of your hand, that's very, very, very lucky. Very lucky depending on where it's located. This is also a very good line because it's moving upwards. If it's on one of your mounds, it's also very good. This one is moving in another direction. They usually say that this is not very good if you have something like that on your palm, but this one is really good because it's moving upwards. Anything that moves downwards, you know for a fact that it's going to be good. That's going to be your thing. So those are some of the markings that you might have on your palm. And then That's some of the examples of where you would see things like how they would look. See, like with this right here, see how this, remember what I said about squirmy lines? But that's dealing more with the heart. So what do you feel that, what do you think that's trying to say, since it's wavering?
Chaos.
Steady?
Yeah, instability with the heart. Oftentimes too, it could indicate that there's a physical problem with the heart as well. So there's, what's really cool about palmistry too, there's like a whole big part of it that has to do with health. You can find out a lot of things associated with health, just by looking at the palm. Even the line itself, if you're looking at the line, it looks like very well marked, and it has a healthy color to it. It's a positive, there's something positive about that line. But if it's like really pale and doesn't look good, well then that's something to be kind of concerned about. So there's like a whole big part, like I said, palmistry is like this huge thing. You could go on and on with it. It has like so many different facets to it. And so it has a little swervy line. And then, they'll have like the other ones. Remember, as I was saying, like when it goes upwards, it's like things are moving upwards depending on that line. Like for example, the heart line, you see that it starts out at a lower decline, then all of a sudden it goes up. But most of the time too, when the line goes up like this, is also, it also has to do with libido. So it has a lot to do with that. Yeah, there's a whole different facet there, associated with that, so it's pretty interesting. Okay, this is the part that I was talking about, dealing with timing. And this is really cool because you can really go into really finding out about things with your palm, or even if you're wanting to look like in the future of something that's going to happen in the future. This is from the time in your, like let's say your heart line, from the time that you were born up until wherever, wherever you want, you can actually look and see what's going to be happening in the future, especially things associated with the heart. Same thing with marriage too. On the marriage line, you can do the same thing too. Like see like around what time period, somebody might be coming into your life. And headline as well. It's like the heart starts over here, the headline and the lifeline are over on this side. If you see, it comes over this way. So you could actually time different facets of your life, by this. If you ever have a fork like this, it's not a bad thing. What it usually means is that something is going to happen to you around this particular time period, which is going to make you think of life in a totally different way. And think of life in a totally different way. And then that's why there's this little fork. And there's a decision that you need to make there too. And so that's an example of a fork. And a lot of times too, this right here, the fate line, it's backwards. It comes up this way when you're checking the time. So there's different areas where you can check the time. As far as this right here is the marriage line, same thing. You can also check and see when certain things are going to happen there, associated with that. So those are really interesting. So that's the way that you would time things. This side would you would read it that way. Any lines come in from that side are going to start 0 over here. Anything over here is going to start on 0. So that's how you would do that. But yeah, that's cool. Okay, so that's what I have so far. Like I told, huh? What?
We'll take a break between the
Oh, okay.
questions and
Okay, we'll take a little break then.
and
I hope you guys have do you guys have questions?
I'm sure there'll be more
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, but we're gonna do the questions
Yep.
after, okay?
Mhm.
I'll start recording.